Here's a look at 5 of my favorite antennas. Stick around and we'll get right to it. Hey, welcome back guys, Jason, KM4ACK. Let's take just a few minutes today to take a look at 5 of my favorite antennas for HT radios. Now before we get to that, let me give you guys a little bit of a backstory. If you're not interested in that, I'll put a timestamp right here on the screen so you can jump to right where we start talking about the antennas. I got into radio for the emergency communications aspect of it, and that came about after my hometown got hit with a really bad tornado many years ago now. But during that period we lost communications, and I wanted to make certain that if that ever happened again, and by the way it has, that I could communicate when all of the traditional cell phones and things were out of commission. So because I focus primarily on that, I do a lot of work with 2-meter, 440, and 220 radio. Now, by no means am I discounting HF radio at all. It absolutely has its place. And the one thing about this hobby is you've got to figure out who you want to talk to. And if you're into emergency communications, that's even more vital that you can define that and define that clearly, because that is going to dictate the choices you make in radio selections. Now, since a lot of my focus has been on that 2-meter, 440, and 220 radio, that means that I am able to use a lot of HTs and not even have to go up to a mobile radio. I have found that I can get quite a bit of capability out of a simple HT, provided we use the right antenna with that. Now, one of the things that allows me to get away with simply using an HT is we have a really good repeater system, WinLink gateway system, and APRS system here in Middle Tennessee. And I completely understand that this might not work for everyone depending on your location and what kind of network you've got around you as far as those 3, the APRS, the WinLink, and the repeaters. But because we are very fortunate with that system here in Middle Tennessee, I have found that a lot of times an HT is plenty capable to do exactly what I need to do. Now, I mentioned that a communications issue came up even after that first tornado, and that was when the AT&T building got bombed several years back in downtown Nashville. When that happened, I lost my cell phone and I lost my home internet service, and that happened to have occurred on Christmas morning. But I found that with just 5 watts, and actually with about 2 watts, I could get into a WinLink gateway that's in an adjacent county, and they still had internet at that particular site. So that opened up the possibilities for me to reach out to friends and family on that Christmas morning and let them know that we were okay, but we were experiencing a communications blackout. Now, before we take a look at my absolute most used antenna, let's give a shout out to today's sponsor, Chat Radio. Be sure to visit their website for all of your ham radio needs. My absolute most used antenna is this Diamond RH519. And guys, I'll leave links to all of these down in the description below. This is my go-to antenna just as my daily driver. If I'm just doing some local stuff, you know, fairly close in, I'm not having to reach out very far to a repeater. If I'm talking to guys on 5.2 simplex, say we're at a ham fest, this I have found is plenty of antenna. Now, before we take a look at number 2, I do want to say that you definitely need to convert all of your radios to BNC. That makes it quick and easy to swap out from one antenna to the next. Now, I'm sure many of you saw number 2 coming up on this list, and that is the Signal Stick by Signal Stuff. This is an absolutely fantastic antenna, and when that little bitty short one won't quite get the job done, often this is plenty of antenna. The other thing that I really like about these is the ability just to coil it up onto itself and drop it in a bag. This keeps it really small and tidy and makes it easy to pack into my HT kit. Number 3 on the list is the Smiley telescopic antenna. And the primary reason that I like this one is because it includes that 220 band. This is a tri-band antenna. Now, what I don't like about it is if you don't have a field card, I can never remember how many sections to deploy to get me to which particular band. But that's my only complaint, and that's my fault if I don't have my field card with me. But that Smiley antenna, oh, another great feature about this one is how flexible the top of this is. So you don't have to worry about bumping this thing into something and breaking it off. It gives you a lot of flexibility. But this is my go-to antenna anytime I grab one of the Kenwood radios that's got the 220 band built into it. Now, I can't remember the model number for this one right off the top of my head, but I'll leave it here across the screen. And again, I'll leave links to all of these antennas down in the description below. All right, before we get to number 4 and number 5, let me answer one of the most often asked questions I get, and that's how do I interface my devices, whether that's a phone or a laptop, to my radios when I want to work with those digital modes. Well, if you've got a radio like the D75 or the D74, or even the BTEC UV Pro or its sister radio, the VGC VRN76, I believe, well, these all have built-in Bluetooth with them, so it's really easy to pair these with your phone to do either APRS or WinLink. There's also a handful of other radios on the market, and more seem to be coming every single week that gives us that Bluetooth access to the TNC. But what if you don't have a radio that's got a built-in Bluetooth TNC? Well, then you can use something like the MobiLink TNC4. It's a little bit pricey, but it will give you that ability if your radio doesn't have it already baked in. Now, if instead you want to connect your radio to, say, a laptop computer, well, again, there's various different ways we could do that. If you've got that D74, D75, or the BTEC UV Pro, well, you can simply use its built-in Bluetooth TNC, connect that to your laptop over Bluetooth, and use that. But if you don't have one of those radios and you've got the laptop, you might pick up something like this DigiRig Lite right here. This would let you run those digital modes just connecting this to the USB port on your laptop. Or you could go with something like the DigiRig Mobile, which is a little bit more versatile. And there's some other options on the market, like the Toads digital interface board. That's something that I just got my hands on, and I'll be looking at in an upcoming video. Now, number 4 on my list used to be this antenna by MFJ. I believe this is what they used to call the Long Ranger. Unfortunately, you can no longer get this antenna, so I hesitate to ever put it in a video. However, I have found a great replacement for this MFJ antenna, and that's the Diamond RH205. I had to make sure I got that number right for you. Again, this is another telescopic antenna. This one is really, really long. Can't even fit it in the camera frame there. But downside to this one, this is a monoband antenna. But since I use 2 meters primarily when I'm getting into WinLink gateways, that's where I would really pick this antenna, is when I can't quite hit one of those gateways and I need a little bit more reach. This one is going to do a lot better than that Smiley antenna, just because you got a lot more antenna in the air. So the Diamond RH205 is a fabulous replacement for that MFJ that I like so well. Now, if you've been following my channel for any length of time, number 5 will be no surprise, and that's the Ed Fong roll-up J-Pole antenna. When you pair that with a mast like the POTA 20 from Gigaparts, this becomes an absolutely fabulous solution. So there's a look at 5 of my favorite HT antennas that I think would be a great addition to anyone's kit. If you found today's information educational, be sure to give us a thumbs up before you head off. We will see you guys on the next one. Until then, 7-3.